But
Yeah.
how does Ramadan work?
Firstly, Ramadan Kareem. I know there's probably a lot of people watching, or that potentially will watch that celebrate Ramadan.
Okay, when sun rises, you can start, and when it sets, you end.
Exactly, yeah, and that's no water too. I know a lot of people have this question about water, so it's it you know what it's really it really gives you gratitude too at the end of the month, and you realize all these things that you had that you almost took for granted on a daily basis. So it's even if people aren't religious, like I tell them like, hey, just try it for a few days and see how you feel after, because it's not
And
a,
it's
it's
not
not
easy for someone
no, not
that
at all.
is used to eating, once to four times a day every day. Then yeah, it's a real challenge. And
Bro,
even
I,
for
I
someone that
eat
does it,
too. I
yeah,
eat like I
mm,
I eat a lot. Like
yeah,
I'm one of those guys that should be a lot heavier than I am. So
hmm,
yeah.
yeah. I think it's important to do mental challenges like that
Hmm.
regularly. Um, I think that's an amazing thing about. I think Ramadan's a really cool thing. I'd love to learn more about it in the future and good
Yeah, it's
stuff. And it's
interesting.
healthy. Fasting's crazy healthy for you too, right?
It is, and you know what too? It's relevant to our conversation because there's a lot of Muslim fighters, right? Like you have,
Mm.
I
Yeah. So
think
how's that
almost.
work? I mean, they're very religious. So all these fighters are fasting even before fights, etc. Like, I imagine that's pretty interesting waters to navigate, right?
Oh, absolutely, and so just in sports history, I just want to give a quick anecdote. But I remember watching a basketball game. I don't know if it was an All-Star game, but Hakeem Olajuwon was like breaking his fast on the court. I think he was like eating something
Oh
small and
yeah.
yeah, and drinking some water. And then recently, not recently, but I know that Hamzat I think fought during Ramadan once, and Bilal Muhammad actually fasted the day that he was fighting, broke his fast, and then fought. And these guys, I know they train. Most
Mm.
of them train throughout Ramadan too. Some people take a month off, but most of them train obviously at a lesser pace. But yeah, they're still in the gym. Some of them train at night. Some of them train before they break the fast. Like
Man, I
it's
think that it's
wild.
so interesting, and I think that's such a um, difference in kind of cultures, and yeah, cultures, religions. Maybe not religions, but cultures. Like in Western culture, I feel like the religion is almost work first, and in order to perform at work, you have to be a tip-top shape. So don't go off of what you regularly do, right? Like,
Yeah,
so yeah, I think you know what I'm trying to say there. And then like in Eastern cultures, work is not like the priority. It's religion, right? Or what you believe in, right? And so
absolutely.
a lot of these fighters, they will put fasting in before the work, right? And they'll work around it, and they'll break fast during like in the middle of a game or something like that, which is incredible. Life is so interesting.
Yeah, man, it's like I was listening to Masvidal too, and just like a lot of like you listen to these people that push themselves beyond like what feels normal, and when you get into that kind of like, I don't know, if you're ever playing soccer, you're fighting and you gas out and you're like,
Mm,
no, I'm not giving up, right? And
yeah.
so it helps you, I think, mentally too, kind of prepare,
Mm.
because if you can train during that time, and I heard Bilal Muhammad say this. He was like, I know my most of my opponents aren't fasting and training right now, so I'm already
Mhm.
like, I'm already one up on them. So it builds confidence, it builds your mental strength. So it's, yeah, there's a lot of advantages too, mentally, that
To
I
doing
think
that,
a lot
yeah.
of these fighters take with them, and that could help them, in the ring. So that's a very interesting thing, and like, obviously you have to do it the right way. I would love to hear someone like
Mm.
Andrew Huberman or somebody talk from
Mm.
a nutrition, like how to.
Standpoint. It's the science
Yeah,
standpoint.
exactly.
Mhm.
What to eat in the mornings, what to eat at
Yeah.
night, how to sleep. This, like, looking. This guy always talks about looking at the sun.
Mm.
So there's probably different things that you can do, obviously, to to help you from a health standpoint too.
I love that. I love that. I think that's such a fascinating, interesting topic, and 100%, it's like in this sport at this level in this day and age, you need more than just talent. You need every potential edge, and that goes so far as potentially fasting to just strengthen your brain, your muscle, like it's such a mental fight in there. It's such a physical fight in there. And there's so many layers on all those fronts. There's the physical layers are like, are you going to box? Are you going to kickbox? Are you going to go to the ground? Right. And then you break it down another level. What kind of Kimura are you going to do? Or, yeah. And then on the mental, there's the battle within yourself. Like, am I going to give up? And then there's the battle of like, what's he thinking? And such a complex, fascinating.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's like the strategy you go in with, your fight IQ, how you respond. Like, you might your game plan might be to take somebody down, and then they're not going down. You're not able to take this person down. You have to improvise. You have to listen to your corner. You have to have the fight IQ yourself. You have to be reactive. There's so many elements to this game. It's like it's chess too. At the end of the day, it's not checkers. There's a lot to it. It's not just brute strength. It's not just who has the hardest punch. It's not who's the best wrestler. It's like, it's called mixed martial arts, and it goes up even beyond martial arts, right? Like if you really kind of study the game, there's strategy, there's nutrition, there's so many things to it, man. It's very complex. Yeah, exactly. Well, we got some exciting topics today, so I'll let you.
We do, Oz. We do. In today's talk, we'll break down Khamzat saying Colby is scared because Colby is an easy fight for him. Bilal Muhammad says he will not fight Shavkat because he is ranked under him. I threw that one in there last minute.
Okay, little surprise.
Yep. Conor McGregor goes after top MMA coaches. Paulo Costa re-signs with the UFC. Bilal Muhammad threatens Colby Covington. And Francis Ngannou reveals Kamaru Usman wasn't properly prepared for the Leon Edwards trilogy. So we'll start with Khamzat Chimaev believes Colby is scared and is an easy fight for him. Not concerned about Colby's cardio. What do you think about that?
Man, first of all, like Khamzat Chimaev is one of the most exciting fighters in the game right now, right? And he not only is a talented fighter, a well-rounded fighter. He's fought at two. Pardon me? You're good.
I'm sorry, partner. Looks like my AirPods are going janky.
No worries.
Come on. Máš AirPods?
We'll have to either run with echo or
you know what, maybe if maybe you can mute when I'm like sometimes when I'm talking, because sometimes I could hear my echo, but I mean either way it's good.
We'll improvise. Yeah, right now they're on. If they die again, then I'll do
no
that.
problem.
I'll mute while you're on. So yeah, we were speaking about chess, and here's a chess match. Khamzat and Colby. Break that down for me, Oz.
Yeah, so this all started with Colby kind of first of all, he was a backup fighter for Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards, right? And a lot of people weren't expecting that. I don't think it was, publicly out there. And so when Colby showed up, and then immediately following the fight, Dana White said, yeah, Colby's getting the next shot. I think, the MMA world and a lot of the fighters that are, that are potential contenders and should be fighting for the belt next, we're pissed off and rightfully so, right? Like a lot of these guys are really well deserving. They've been on long win streaks. So then I think Colby had a tweet that was like, I was never offered that fight. And then in the same sentence, he said, I accepted the fight. And then it was a weird tweet. Like somebody broke it down the other day and it was a little bit contradictory. So
that's very interesting. I know Khamzat, when he was saying a lot of this stuff or talking about this, he was saying that one thing he doesn't respect about Colby, he was on Ariel's show, is that Colby's kind of fake. He's not, he lies Khamzat says Colby lies at press conferences, makes it a show. For me, I can't lie to people. I am who I am. They like it. They don't like it. I am who I am. That guy plays too much. That's what Khamzat said about Colby.
Yeah. So, that was a great interview with Ariel Helwani and Khamzat Chimaev. If people haven't watched that, it's I always love watching Hamzat. He's so cold. Like, I love these fighters that are just so matter of fact, but it's so chilling what they say, you know. I think he is a guy that will truly fight anybody, anywhere, you know. He's, you know, he talked about going after 3 belts. And I mean, we've seen the guy at 170, we've seen him at 185. It's not out of the realm of possibility, right? This guy has fought what, 6 fights, you know, in the UFC. Is it 6? It's 6 now. And you know, other than the Burns fight, I don't think he received more than 4 significant strikes. You know, like he's a very dominant and terrifying you know, fighter. And you know, he has like the cool thing about Hamza Chimaev too is he has that Mike Tyson effect. Like, I think he scares the shit out of people, man.
The fear element,
man,
and the unknown, maybe because he's just been so dominant up until Gilbert Burns, right? Gilbert really put him in for the ringer. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, styles make fights, man. Gilbert Burns has good takedown defense, and bro, Gilbert Burns is a he's a beast. He's a beast, man. He dropped Kamaru in one of their fights, right? Like, he's up there. He's one of the best in the welterweight division. So I mean, like, yeah, but in terms of this whole thing, I think like people. Okay, so let's just get into the whole issue of people ducking Hamzat. I don't think there's like so the one thing that we can say, if you look at the risk versus reward scenario in this situation, anybody versus Hamzat, right? Until he has the belt, people are thinking, what's the risk? Okay, the risk is this guy's only looked human in one fight. So if I get dominated out there, is it worth me taking this fight, right? And obviously, when he's a champion, everybody's going to go after him. But right now, there's beside the pay incentive, if you're making a run at the belt, he's not a good guy to fight. Not a lot of people want to take that fight.
The only thing is the notorious effect that he's brought in, the fear element. And if someone takes him on, it's almost like a David and Goliath type deal. Or if someone can take him on and take him out, like, then it's like, whoa, respect. That's the only enticement I see to someone taking him on until he gets the belt, right?
So it's like, if you're making I guess what I'm saying is, if you're making a strategic, calculated run at the belt and you want to do it in the safest way possible, then maybe you don't fight him. You know, like, maybe you kind of dodge him and try to go past him, because I don't, you know. But you're right. This is a money fight, man. This guy draws, and it's part of your legacy. If you can have that on your mantle, being Hamzat Chimaev, you're automatically, like, your star power, your stock goes up. So yeah, it's one of those things where I think, like, you know, the rewards are big, but the risk is also high, you know. And I can't wait to see this guy fight again. I know he was saying he wanted to fight in July and then again in October. So and you know, like, they kind of chose for him that he would fight at 185 now, which opens up a whole new door of you know, realm of possibilities. And we have another topic, I think, coming up where we'll kind of get into that.
You're right. You're 100% right. But pretty much to make sure I got everything you said, you're saying Hamzat is high risk, high reward. That's the type of fight he is if you're anybody else in the UFC, in the division, right? But you touched on chess and strategy, who to fight, which, yes, does bring us on to our next topic, which is Bilal saying he will not fight Shavkat because he is ranked under him. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on that, brother?
So, yeah, like, I think in these scenarios where you have a guy who's on a 8-fight winning streak, I think Bilal Muhammad's on, where, you know, he's taken on a lot of these fighters underneath him, you know, like, I think because he's fought so many, like, he's taken a lot of risks in his, you know, in his current in his last few fights. I think he deserves, like, and if you're not going to give him someone like the title fight, like, he deserves somebody ahead of him, right? Like, so I understand his positioning, and yeah, like, that's another like risky fight, like high risk, high reward. These guys that come up and are undefeated, you know, Shavkat's undefeated, 19-0. He's won every fight by, like, he's ended every fight. So none of his fights have even went to decision. Like, I understand, you know, Bilal's wanting or kind of demanding to fight, you know, someone above him, right? And you've seen, like, it could play out two ways. You've seen the UFC where the UFC punishes somebody for not taking a fight, right? Like we've seen that.
Yeah.
And so it's I guess it's kind of like a strategic game with the UFC too. And but I mean, if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. So
it's interesting. Bilal saying that. I mean, he's saying what he feels, what he thinks. Shavkat, I mean, they're putting another fucking dangerous guy just like Hamzat in front of him. Hey, take him out before you get that money title fight, right?
Mhm.
And Bilal's definitely fed up. He's annoyed. But what like can he? What other moves do you make if you're him? One thing that's in his favor is Leon Edwards also saying he won't fight Colby, right? So there's like two big names that are kind of going against Dana right now, which is an interesting element. I'm super excited to see if who wins this negotiation, this stalemate. Talk to me on that.
Yeah.
This is another battle. They're not just fighters in the ring, but they have to fight like business, right?
Yeah,
like
on Twitter, yeah, with the UFC, yeah, it's a multi-layered game, right? And so there's a few things going on here too. Like, so everybody in the MMA community, I think hands down, is saying that Bilal Muhammad is deserving of a title fight, right? They're not saying like he's the only one that deserves it, but everyone's saying like, yeah, that makes sense, right? People have acknowledged that it might not be the biggest like money fight, pay-per-view draw fight, but it's the most deserving. Like he's the most deserving fighter. Sorry. The other options for Bilal is to fight someone like Colby, right? And he's called Colby out. The other thing too is Bilal Muhammad has been calling out Hamzat Chimaev as well, right? There's another fight. So there's a lot of interesting fights there to make. You know, and Bilal and Leon had history, right? They fought, but it was a no contest. It was an eye poke. So, you know, Bilal, in all honesty, Leon was winning the first round, but also Bilal kind of turns it up in the later rounds, right? So there's a little bit of history there with Leon Edwards as well. So there's so many different kind of elements to this, but I think that, yeah, Bilal's the most deserving, and you know, it's not like he's scared of Shavkat. It's not like he won't fight Shavkat. I think he's just saying like, look, I've gone 8-0. I beat some of the, you know, top 5, top 10 guys. Like he's been fighting. If you look at his the last, you know, few fights, he's been fighting really tough guys. So I mean,
you're right.
I understand his perspective, and I'm sure he'll fight somebody like that if he doesn't get a fight. But you know, he's got to call his shot. And yeah, I'd like to see him fight somebody. I think he's deserving. Let's say he's deserving of fighting somebody ranked above him now. You know, because I don't think there's anybody else besides Leon Edwards in that division that's on a streak like that, right?
You're right. Where my mind goes to is empathy, and like we talked about last time, you're Dana. What do you do in this position? Do you stick to your word? Like he came out publicly, stick to your word, stick to your, you know, decision, and force the Leon versus Colby fight now that you've put it out there, or now with all this information, all this like this disagreement, this like Sun Tzu, I think he calls it. I was reading his book, The Art of War for Managers this morning, and he calls it moral influence or spirit of mission, which is the strength of belief that the purpose is morally sound, rallies a fighting spirit. But pretty much it's like the moral of the people that if he's like the general, his troops, his officers are starting to be like, yo, what's the deal here? What's the business model? What's the direction? Should we only try to make money fights and blow up our personalities? Or should we purely focus on the sport, on the fighting? And this is such a critical moment in the future of the UFC and where things will go from here. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just as you're talking, you know, something is coming to my mind. No matter what happens, look how much controversy this has caused. Look how much attention this has grabbed. Look how much Twitter beef has started.
You're right.
Look at
it's awesome.
You have. We're going to talk about it later. You know, somebody Colby threatened somebody, right? And we'll get into that. Like I have some opinions on that, but I mean, like, look how much attention this has started. Whether it was intentional and that was Dana White's intention or not.
Yeah,
this is kind of like it started this conversation, it started a debate, and everybody's talking about it. So I mean, no matter what, at the end of the day, the UFC wins because they're the marketing of this, like no matter what happens, you could sell it, like whatever happens, you can sell it.
You're right, but there are short-term wins and long-term wins, right? This situation here is definitely like promotes all these fighters, drives more attention, super great for the sport. But then there's also like the reputation long-term. If you go just the show, just the Kobe because he draws more, like that changes the future of the UFC. If you go more, Bilal gets it because he deserves it, then you kind of, it's like, do you go for just showbiz or do you go for professionalism, Olympics, right? And so like, it's not just about money here.
I don't think the UFC, bro, after Power Slap came in the game,
they're all showbiz. That's
mean, like,
the model
and they've already set this precedent. They've already set this precedent, in my opinion, with Conor and with other fighters that draw. Like, they've been able to call, like, their shots. They've been given better opportunities. So I agree, though. Like, that's my opinion too, Tom. Like, I 100% agree that you have to have some sort of principle, right? Like, you have to have some principles, or you have to have some, at least, like, okay, if somebody's on a, let's give it an imaginary number just to make things. If you win more than 7 fights in a row, then you have first say over somebody who's 2-2, which is exactly what's happening right now, right? So
sounds reasonable.
It sounds reasonable, right? So if you throw some like guidelines in there, or some like a methodology, or even just some rules, and it doesn't have to be like a structured PFL, Bellator tournament, round robin. It doesn't have to be anything like that, but if you come to the people and you're like, look, we understand that there's, that this is, they can't say they're losing stock, but from a business perspective, even versus, keeping it professional, I think that would be a good solution to say, you know what, from now on, here's one rule. If you're on an 8-fight winning streak or 10-fight winning streak, you get a chance over anybody who's lost or who's less than 50%
That's a very
wins in the last
idea. You're saying if you're Dana White, if you're the president of the UFC, you're working with your team on, what do we come up with to try to balance, the showbiz and the fair play, or the fair competition, right? Because if we just go all showbiz, all after the money, then this becomes just, a show. It becomes a entertainment thing. It becomes
it's like boxing almost.
It
like
loses,
that's a criticism. Yeah, it's a criticism of boxing that the best aren't fighting the best, right? Like that's what this is about at the end of the day. This is about the best fighting the best.
Yeah. And so I'm sorry for interrupting, but
no, go ahead.
Is that the long-term play? Right now you might get those dollars, but will people in 5-10 years, if it keeps going this direction, will people, and then say another league comes up like PFL, and they're doing like, we're actually getting the best fighters in the world. We have an actual system. Like, we're the Olympics, we're the real deal of it. That becomes a whole nother niche, a whole nother thing. And what survives longer in the aspect of our world, I don't know. We might be fighting in virtual reality and shit. So maybe Dana did calculate these two paths, and he chose showbiz. I'm only going to live for another 30 years. The world changes so fast. This is the way to go. I'm curious if before
I understand what
go
you're
ahead.
saying.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. So I think in the long, like, first of all, nobody can compete with the UFC right now. If you look at numbers, like the UFC is in a different planet. A different solar system right now in comparison to the other leagues, right? These other leagues have fighters that I believe are top 5, could even be potential champions in the future in the UFC. I absolutely agree with that. But on average, if you did a tournament top 10 versus top 10, it wouldn't be a contest. You know what I mean? Like, I think the UFC is like, in terms of the best in the world, but I think, for the people,
if I can just bounce like a quick little tidbit in there, just saying that's true. The UFC is just like on a whole nother level, although within 10 years, like it took the UFC 10, 20 years to get to where they are today, right? But like, look how quickly the world and things can change. Like 2 years, COVID, and our entire world, our reality, everything changed, right? Rome, like they fell pretty quickly after, I think, like the year 500, Marcus Aurelius' reign, right? And then after that, shit starts falling real quick. They split into two, and boom, that's the end of Rome, right?
Tom, I mean, that's the biggest risk. Like I agree with you, because it doesn't give you the professionalism and the it's not like it's not that it's not ethical, it's not fair, right? And every other sport, in almost every other sport, you see this like fairness, like that, you know, like there's a method, there's a
league, there's a bracket system, right?
There's some sort
of,
of,
if I beat him, I get this, right? If I get
I think so. I think where it could go south is if the UFC starts doing stuff like this all the time, or they do something so drastic that they bring in like a WWE star that fights for the belt. Like if they start doing stuff like that, then I think it'll. But I think every once in a while, if they throw in a money fight over, you know, what ought to be or what's fair, then I think they can get away with it right now. But long term, you're right. Like if one of these leagues start competing and that's their differentiator and that's why people are watching them, people will take notes. And I think it'll force maybe even the UFC to change. But
very, very interesting. We could go on and on about this, but we have other topics to cover. I'll just end it on you, the viewers. What do you guys think? Should the UFC take this in the showbiz direction, make the fights that you want to see, or make the fights that you feel are fair and maybe also want to see? Maybe you don't. The reality, the numbers show that most people rather see the money fights, right? And what should the UFC, if you run the UFC, what do you choose? All right, let's go into the next one. Bilal Muhammad says he will not, Conor McGregor goes after top MMA coaches. Oh, he's starting beef, man. Talk to me. Who did he call out? Tell me about each of these coaches. Like, what does this mean? Like, if you go into a fucking high school, into a business, and you call out all the big, like, not even leaders, you call out the people that like train the top guys today. These are the senseis. You're calling out like wisdom, and you know, what does this mean for Conor? What does this mean overall? Talk to me.
It's almost to me like the Colby kind of model in this game, right? Where you're almost like it's almost like clickbait material. It's, you know, he's saying things, I think, to get a reaction. Maybe this guy's just loves attention. I mean, it's not a secret. This guy loves attention, right? So like the one thing that we could do as an MMA channel, as MMA media, is present the facts, right? And the person I actually feel most bad for here, I think, is Coach Kavanaugh, like Conor's coach, right? Because
Oz, I kind of made, since this is our like first show, I made a mistake. I should have probably read the tweet or show it on screen here. So just so anyone that sees this knows what we're talking about. Conor McGregor tweeted, Faraz Zahabi is a little douchebag. Trevor Whitman is a pad man. Javier Mendez is a fat lick arse kickboxer. Mike Brown is a smelly prick. Greg Jackson got caught up. The system of Coach Kavanaugh is now shining through. In years to come, the world will know what we have been at. It's beginning to bear fruit. If you want to train at SBG Ireland with Cav and me. We are a fight factory akin to butter churning. And sorry, continue. I'm an asshole.
Oh, no worries. So, I mean, Conor has said things like this before, and I forget what interview it was, but, you know, Coach Kavanaugh came on and he's like, I don't really agree with that. So I think it puts him in an awkward situation. He's probably cringing when he sees these things. That's what I think, right? Just based on how he is in interviews. He seems like a respectable coach and human being. But let's talk facts, right? Let's talk facts. Like, I know it's headlines, but let's do a fact check here, right? Like, let's see what's fake news, right? Like everybody's talking about so let's talk. So Trevor Whitman, right? How many? So first of all, if we start, let's start at Coach Kavanaugh. So no diss to Coach Kavanaugh at all, right? But he's had Conor McGregor, who's been a champion. You know, he's had other, and I'm not like, I don't know the exhaustive list. This is just literally off my head. But he's had Gunnar Nelson, Johnny Walker, right? Yeah, Johnny Walker's. I think he's won a few fights now, but he was on a pretty bad losing streak, and he's kind of jumped from camp to camp. So I don't even know where this is coming from. Like, they don't have any current champions in any of the big promotions. From my understanding, I could be wrong on this. You know, I'll investigate that more later. But when you're looking at these other coaches, when you're talking about Firas Zahabi, who's one of the GOATs that's mentioned in every conversation? GSP, right? Like, Firas Zahabi trained
Legend.
GSP. Firas Zahabi is a student and a master of the game. Like, he studies movement. He studies how to do a proper squat, how to not tear out your knees, strength and conditioning, strategy. Like,
years of wisdom and mastery. Yeah.
Firas Zahabi's
senseis.
Yeah,
calling out the Jedis.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you guys don't watch Firas Zahabi, you need to watch his channel. He does fight predictions. He does fight breakdowns. One of the most,
and he's on YouTube, Instagram.
Oh yeah, he's on YouTube. Yeah, he streams live on YouTube, and then you can watch him after the fact as well. And he has a really interesting podcast with Joe Rogan about like movement. Just about like, he just talks about movement and how you move, and how, like, it's so interesting and it's so important, because this is a game where a lot of people get injured, and so this guy, like, to go after someone like that who's had that caliber of fighters, like, it's just, so Firas Zahabi is one of the
stirring up trouble, right?
Yeah, but it's not true. Like, what he's saying is not true, is what I'm trying to. Trevor Whitman, Kamaru Usman, he trains Kamaru Usman. He trains Justin Gaethje. I believe he trained at one point TJ Dillashaw. He trained Rose Namajunas. 3 out of 4 of those fighters have been champions in the UFC.
All right, Oz.
Okay,
I think I got you. You're
right?
saying that McGregor's legit just speaking out of his ass. None of this is facts. It's just to generate a little bit of buzz, but it's all bullshit. It means nothing.
Bro, Mike Brown at ATT has Dustin Poirier, Masvidal, Kayla Harrison, Amanda Nunes, Greg Jackson, John Jones, Rashad Evans. Like, Javier Mendez, are you kidding me? You want to compare, you want to compare AKA to, I forget the name of the school in Ireland. But
SBG.
He has, exactly. So he's had Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier, Luke Rockhold, Islam Makhachev, Usman Nurmagomedov, Umar Nurmagomedov. Bro, he's got like how many champions in the last 5 to 10 years? It's insane. So this is almost like a jealousy post to me.
It's crazy. It's bold. It's wild. It's kind of like drunken banter, that does not have much oomph behind that punch, right?
The only time I can respect cockiness at times, and I'm not even saying I like it. The only time I can respect it is when there's something behind it. So Conor, what's his, like, look at his last 5 fights. What's his record? You can't talk when you're in that spot, in my opinion. Like, you have no foot to stand on, right? But the problem is, Conor, I think, attracts a lot of casuals too, right? So casuals don't know the context. They don't know the history.
Yeah, casual. They don't know the details. Like, maybe he's right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's again, that's our responsibility, Tom. Right? Like, we gotta fact check and call a spade a spade.
I love it. I love it because, to be completely honest, I do other things, and I'm a little bit more than a casual, but I'm also like a casual. And you're an expert. You love this. You're in this nonstop, and doing this show and talking with you helps educate me. It's fun for both of us, and maybe it brings some value to some casuals or some experts to, like, just even clear up things like this, right? So you can better understand.
And at the end, one thing I want to say too is, and we talked about this in an offline conversation about Gaethje and his comments toward Bisping. We're all biased too, man.
Yeah.
I can label my
Reality.
biases, right? I can label my biases. I can tell you who I'm more biased towards. So I'll try to call that out even too as we have these conversations, because like Connor struck a nerve with me that, you know, something I can't forgive, like in some of the things that he said, right? So
Are you talking about or a lot of fighters, but probably Habib?
Absolutely, yeah. Just some of the lines he crossed there to me were just so pathetic and like not like a not
too
the true
much. He went overboard to you.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention earlier too is like there's a fine line, but there's a line, right? Like you can say, you know what, this fighter is trash, and I'm not going to get mad at that because you're selling a fight. You're talking about the fighter. I think it's like the mafia rule, right? Like you don't go after family and women, children, you know, like in families. So I think when you start talking about family, you start talking about culture, religion. This is where like you're on a slippery slope, man.
This is something that if we can go deeper into this, if we can take a deeper macro look at this, if that's cool with you.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is something, obviously the UFC is playing a big influence on the world, right? Like fighting sports have always played a big influence on the globe, you know, for the last 2,000 years since Roman arenas. I'm sure in Roman gladiators, they brought in people like the best fighter from fucking China, you know, they're samurai. And like if a samurai from China was fighting like the Roman, you know, legionnaire that like fucking accomplished so much, like that would bring in all of Rome. People would be talking about that in all the provinces of Rome. Like they'd be talking about that in India. Like that's the fight game. It shakes us to our roots. That's why so many people love this. That's why it's overgrown boxing, because it gets us closer to that Roman arena, right? And so we also recently talked about like difference in cultures. Like in the Western world, there's a lot of like just to get a little background, you've got that Dagestan background. And you talk about the realities of some of these fighters, why they're very good fighters from Dagestan, and like how they're really crushing it, right? I talked about how in Poland, like 10, 20 years ago, as they were coming out of like communism, you walk around on the street and you kind of worry that someone bothers you, and they just bother you just to see like how tough you are. And you're like, shit, it'd be handy if I knew how to fight. You know, that we've lost that in the Western world. Also growing up in the US, like experiencing that, I don't think you experience it as much unless you go to just the club, right? And like look for trouble. And I could be wrong, there could be a little bit biased, but I think in general, I don't think it's crazy to say that it's a little bit more hardcore in those parts. And like words mean a lot more in those parts versus like Connor saying this is probably going to trigger some people and open up debate. My analysis of that, and I'm open to, you know, talking more about it. But okay, how do I tie this back in?
What's like, yeah, you're talking about, I think, the difference in culture and the difference in like what words mean and what, you know, like, because you're right, in North America you could be like, you know, you hear people curse at each other's moms and it's like they're joking around, right? But like,
but in that does not fly in Eastern cultures, right? You would never say something about someone's mom or that, you know. In America, I have a really good yo mama, that was so big, right?
I have a friend group, Tom, right? Polish, Korean, Romanian, Iraqi. Did I say Albanian? So it's just called the United Nations, right? Like it's very diverse. And to this day, if you talk about my Albanian friend's sister or mother, like he will strangle you. He strangled one of our friends like 5 years ago for like just joking, right? But that's like, so there's a cultural differences here, but I mean, I still think at the end of the day, there's got to be some worldly standard, right?
And like earlier, we talked about the direction the UFC is taking, and I think I remember how to tie it back in now. The UFC is taking that direction of showbiz, right? And now you get the likes of Colby and Connor that are just fucking saying anything. I'll kill your fucking family. Like, you're just going overboard. That is a lot overboard in a lot of cultures, but maybe less so in the Western world, right?
So
Connor, like, maybe he's saying that metaphorically. I don't know, but a lot of these other coaches.
So
defend
this, like if we're talking almost like about, and it's hard to generalize, but if if we had to generalize and we had to oversimplify this, if we're talking about Eastern versus Western values, I do believe that the one good thing about the Western values too is the freedom of speech, right? Like, so the UFC is not really censoring people on what they say, and anybody could say anything, and it's like fair game. So, the same freedom that allows maybe some people to get their voice out there and say things that they can't say in other, if they said something in the NBA, you see what happens when you talk about NBA, NHL, like there's ramifications and there's serious consequences. In the UFC, you can say anything, and so it's it's a balance.
To Dana for that culture. I mean, I think it's so important to have freedom.
It's dangerous. It's good. Like it's to me, it's neither. It's good. Like you can see the good in it, but then you can see the bad in it, because some of this stuff spills out into the street, and we've seen examples of that, right? It spills onto the street. It could spill out even beyond that, man. When you have like smaller tribal thinking, like and you have people who are used to defending their word and they identify with something, and you talk that shit,
I mean, it goes back to like everyone. If Dana goes out there and says, "Yo, this is happening," now he does not want to go back on that word, right? But then you've got people out there like Kobe or Connor that are saying like things that don't mean a lot, but they're, it's very interesting, very fascinating. And it's interesting where the world's going to go if this continues. And
one thing we forgot too is that, so Leon said he's not going to take the Kobe fight.
Right? Leon said he's not going to take the Kobe fight.
He's saying if I have anything to say with it, about it, that's not the next fight. So anyways, let's not get open that. I know it's one of the hottest topics right now, but we forgot to kind of mention that earlier, I think.
Dude, this is such a good talk, but we are not hitting as many topics. How are you on time? How much?
I'm good, actually. I'm good. I think we can finish.
We can keep going through the topics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
All right. So next we have Paulo Costa re-signs with the UFC. I think there's interesting elements. He was kind of like on the side of Francis, where he's like thinking about going somewhere else. Francis has left, and it's kind of been silent. Where's Francis going to go next? Where does your mind go when you hear that?
So I'm so happy he re-signed with the UFC. Firstly, right? This guy's such a. First of all, if you don't follow this guy on social media, you have to. If you're not easily offended, this guy is hilarious. Like, he has his social media game, his
secret juice.
Pardon me, it's the secret juice. Yeah, this guy's the best, right? Like, he's so many like quotable, funny things that he says and does, and just the way he acts. He's a goofy, like funny guy, right? Like, not goofy in a negative term.
Yeah, but yes, so he's hilarious.
He's
so
he's
funny.
A superstar, and like he's almost like a comedian to me. But then you remember him fighting Yoel Romero, Uriah Hall. Like, you remember those, like how dangerous this guy is too. So I'm super excited to see him fight next, and I think Hamzat versus him at 185 would be interesting, because it's Hamzat's first fight, and like I think Costa's still in the top 5. I'm not sure, but like it'd be a good test for him, or against Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland's another really tough guy, So I think there's a lot of funny fights, and if we're talking about the showbiz side, there will be no lack of clickbait and press conference quotables from anybody, him and any of those two guys. Sean Strickland's hilarious, Hamzat's hilarious in his in his crazy way, and then Paulo Costa is like, I can't wait to see him fight again, and I'm excited even for like the drama that ensues before the fight.
Yes, it's crazy how. Before I say what I wanted to say. Paulo Costa, do you know who Renato Laranja is? I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
Is he the Brazilian? Is he Henry Cejudo's not manager?
He had a show on YouTube like 8 years ago. It was called the Renato Laranja Show, man. Dude, I'm gonna like drop a link here. It was so funny. He'd like act like he was a sensei and just troll. Like he'd have Frank Shamrock, Michael Bisping on, Bas Rutten, Kenny Florian, and he produced some great content. I mean, I think if he did the same thing that he did today, that he did 8 years ago on that YouTube channel, they would go like take off like crazy. I think Echo Charles from Jocko produced it too, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Definitely worth checking out. But yeah, Paulo Costa signing with the UFC is freaking amazing. It's awesome to see how quickly you can go from being disliked to liked in this game. Or maybe he was just misunderstood before, and now he's,
I think people love Paulo Costa, like or they find him funny at least. Like he's a good guy.
You gotta love him for something. For either his humor,
exactly.
his beautiful body, his like.
Yeah, that's right.
You got for the secret juice, like you gotta love him something.
You guys gotta watch that TED Talk. You should link the TED Talk that he did too on social media.
Oh yeah, that quick one.
The fake, the secret juice. Yeah,
we could do that again. That'd be fun. That's great. All right, next topic. We've got Bilal Muhammad threatens Colby Covington. And have you followed this? Have you seen this?
Oh yeah. I've been following the conversation. This whole welterweight, like, there's a lot of people involved now, right? Like more and more people are getting kind of dragged into this. So it's funny when somebody states something like, first of all, John Anik. Okay, so this all started with Colby Covington threatening John Anik, right? So do I first of all, there's like, no matter what, it's wrong to threaten somebody, and I could understand how anybody can take a threat seriously, right? Like I take threats very seriously. But if there was somebody I wasn't going to take a threat seriously from, it's Colby Covington, with all due respect, right? Like I understand he's selling a fight, but like John Anik's one of the nicest, most respectful, objective, polite commentators in this game, right? And he's revered and loved amongst fighters and his co-workers and colleagues. So, to threaten a guy like that, I can't think that. I don't know.
It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope with it. We saw what happened when what's his name, blonde funny guy. Why am I blanking right now? Called out Ariel. Or talk shit about him. The what's his name? He gets really fat and then loses a lot of weight.
Paddy Pimblett.
Paddy Pimblett, yes.
Yeah.
We saw what happened when Paddy called out Ariel, and we just talked about how Costa quickly can go from disliked to liked, or Paddy Pimblett can go from loved to fucking disliked very much so very quickly in this game. Colby, he's like loved or hated to the max, right? Probably more so disliked. But now adding on to that, calling out John Anik, continue, yeah.
So I think the question is like Colby's heel thing, right? It's no matter what, because you want to see him lose now, right? And so I think and we're talking about him. He hasn't fought in how long? He's 2-2 in his last 4 fights. He's a great fighter. I'm not taking anything away from his skill. He is, he is top 5, and he's a strong top 5, right? But I think, like I said, Bilal Muhammad's good friends with John Anik. I'm pretty sure that he has they're always on a podcast together. So, I understand too, like if I had a friend that wasn't a fighter, and I've defended my friends several times in the streets, just even sometimes like I shouldn't have, right? But you get emotional about your friends. So yeah, Bilal said,
are you a fighter?
So I mean, like, I'm not a fighter. Like I trained kickboxing for a couple years, did jiu-jitsu for a couple weeks. I don't think I was.
You get it, but you're more a fan. You love it, but you don't necessarily play it. Like my younger brother growing up, my brother, I played football. My brother loves football. I can't watch it. I enjoyed playing. So yeah, but no.
There was probably, I want to say like 4 or 5 years of my life too, where I was hanging out with some people that were putting me in some situations. So there was a lot of stories from back then, a lot of crazy stories, a lot of like exciting stuff, but just stupid. Now when I look back, I kind of regret like a lot of that cool stories, like I said. But so I mean, I was
one day we can go into them. That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can talk offline one day. It's yeah, absolutely. But so yeah, like I I guess I have it in me, but I feel like I'm too brittle compared to like when I see other guys train. I'm always like, somebody like rolled on my rib, and I'm like, my rib hurts and it was bruised, and then I couldn't breathe properly, so I stopped going.
Yeah.
I rolled my ankle in soccer, and then I was afraid, and when I was doing jiu-jitsu, so it's just.
And the fight game, I mean, training is like a fight. It's a war. Like, it's hard to keep on training, and so that's why these guys are so respected and stuff. I mean, they go to war every single day when they practice, right? Rolled ankles, bruises, cuts, black eyes. Yeah, that's why.
But I've been trying to actually. There's a friend of mine who was I'm pretty sure he fought in K1. And then there's some boxers here, so I do want to get some like one-on-one training again, just to kind of get like my striking, whatever.
Heck yeah!
I'm not competing or anything, right? It's more of like just the hand-eye coordination and I like hitting things. I love striking. I love fight. Like I love fighting still. There's a part of me that loves fighting, but I just don't want to do it because it has too many consequences and.
Movement's just so important, so healthy for us. So, making the time to just do some of that boxing movement, some of that jiu-jitsu movement, it's good for your body, man. It's good for your health.
Absolutely.
Even if you get bruised up a little bit, it's good for you, right?
Yeah. What do you think about this whole Colby and Bilal? Like, what do you think about this threat by Colby? Like, because
I think Bilal.
Should there? And so the one last end question I want to add to that is: should there be like should the UFC almost like we talked about this before? This kind of freedom of speech. Should there be a line? Should there be like, hey, you can say whatever you want, but you can't threaten someone's like how do you do that? How do you navigate that?
I think that the way that things are right now, like you should be able to say whatever you want. Freedom of speech is legit. Conor, Colby, say whatever the fuck you want. But like they're like, this is gonna draw heat. But Masvidal, retaliating for Colby saying all that shit, is that in the Eastern world, I don't think a lot of Eastern world people, there's nothing wrong with that, I don't know.
I think a lot of Western people supported that too.
I think a lot of Western,
a lot of people understood where someone,
but then like a lot of people on, but you can't also go around fucking people up because they said something bad, and so it's such a fine line, But I mean, I think it's kind of like a school fight. Like a lot of us have been in school fights growing up. And so like when a student's a scumbag, asshole, bully, right? And someone comes up and, just shuts him up, that person gets a lot of respect amongst his peers. Like in the tribe, like that guy now becomes the new leader. Like there was the tyrant bully that ran the show. And then, a guy came up and he's like, yo, I'm going to shut this guy up for everyone, That guy's bigger than me. That guy's scarier than me. But like, fuck, we can't listen to this anymore. And then you've got that school element, or you've got the tribe elder element. And they're like, normally we can't fucking fight. But when there's a scumbag asshole and he gets hit, then maybe we can forgive the guy that, shut him up. So, I think, is that viewers, do you think I'm crazy for thinking that way? Let us know.
The last thing I want to say about Colby is like I think he's a really nice guy behind like closed doors, and like
I think so too. He does it.
Yeah, I don't think he's like, as much like Conor, where like I don't know what Conor's thinking, right? Like I'm not in his head. I can't understand his train of thought. But you can almost like say, you can almost understand what Colby's doing and what his like intention is, and you know what I mean. Yeah. So, but still, like, does that even matter? At the end of the day, there's a conduct, there's a code of ethics. There's like you said, there's rules to this game, right? And so there's rules in this game,
unwritten
fighters,
rules, right?
Yeah, unwritten rules amongst the fighters, and there's unwritten rules amongst the managers. But I think there's certain lines that have to be black and white. Or else like somebody's gonna get hurt. Because like, bro, look at football. Look at like some of the people that play some of these sports. They're not just fighters. Like some of these people
like Nate Diaz. You've got guys out here that are not just fighters.
At least Nate Diaz was just.
Everyone out here is a fucking lion.
Yeah, at least Nate Diaz is on the fist fight kind of, realm, like I'm saying, like it's only a matter of time before like you have some really tough, like crazy guy in the UFC that takes it out of the ring, and like something bad's gonna happen. It's a fight game, right? This is a crazy wild game, but so I think there needs to be some rules, some punishment. Nothing crazy, but they need to figure something out there, man, because some of this stuff could cause.
You have ideas? Let us know. I mean, what the hell do you do? What do you do if you're the UFC? What do you do if you run these leagues, right? It's so interesting. It's so complex, like life, good stuff. Next topic. Francis Ngannou reveals Kamaru Usman wasn't properly prepared for the Leon Edwards trilogy. Wasn't properly prepared?
So this was interesting, and I think if you look back at the way Kamaru Usman, like if you watch him on Joe Rogan, when he was talking about his some of his previous fights, he was saying how bad his knees were, and he was talking a lot about his injuries and how bad some of his injuries were. He had surgery on his hand. Within the last year and a half, he had like pretty serious surgery on his hand. So
he doesn't run.
We do know that
I remember him saying that Kamaru does not run because he's got.
So we do know that Kamaru Usman has had a set of injuries, and he's never been kind of let's say 100%. But what I like about what's changed with Kamaru and like just kind of respecting is, one, I love the way he took the first loss and the second loss so far. He didn't come out and say this.
Kamaru's a gentleman,
He's like, in my opinion, he's evolved, and he's improved as a competitor. And like, I love when people are just like, it wasn't my night. Hats off to the champ. I love that. I like that level of respect. So I respect Kamaru for not blaming the injuries, but then it opens up, and it opens up the question: if Kamaru was 100% healthier, would the outcome of the fight change, right? Like if he was able to train harder, if he was.
There's so many deep elements that we just don't know, and these fighters, they're lions. They're not going to go out and like, shit, I was actually facing all these things behind the scenes that you guys don't know, but I can't say it because it sounds like an excuse if I say it, And so. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This fight game is not just who wins on fight night. It's who wins, 6 weeks before that. Who wins, who's
luck.
There's so
Sometimes
many
it's
elements.
Luck, right? Sometimes it's like you hear horror stories of what people go into fights with, right? Like Muhammad Mokaev's shoulder was messed up before that fight, right? Like like some of these fighters really go to war no matter what, and
they, what's worse? They have to fucking hide it and not tell anyone except like their closest people, because if they even tell someone, go to a doctor, and the doctor tells people, his fucking opponent knows his weakness,
So I want to tell you an interesting story that I heard, and I won't name sources or anything, but
hit me.
So when Khabib was fighting Justin Gaethje, right? He had gone through a series of, I'm not going to mention what happened or whatever, but he's gone through a series of obstacles, right? Like, quote unquote injuries, like that were, I think it was his toe. He had he got sick, and his team even said like, hey, maybe you shouldn't take this fight, right? But his team told me that on that day, they're like, he was so mentally like steadfast and strong that they're like, he could have beat Brock Lesnar that day. Like he wasn't losing that fight. Like they told him not to take the fight, but just his mental strength and his heart, and who he is, they all just said like, he wasn't losing that fight, man. There's no way. We told him not to fight, but we knew he wasn't losing that fight just because of how mentally strong he was. And I mean, that's a risk, right? Like if you lose a fight, like he could have lost his right? He could have lost it could have been his only loss because he has an injury, but he did what he had to do, man. And there's hats off to anybody who has that level of dog in them, who's that much of a warrior that even when you have an injury and you're going against the advice of your, medical experts and your manager and your team, and, so.
Yeah. Sometimes it's sometimes you break the rules to, make something like, it could be the most important moment of your life, and you're like,
for greatness,
I have to show up.
For your legacy.
And this is a war to them, to these fighters, like at this time, like it's a war for survival, finances, legacy, like so much. And so, yeah, they turn into Michael Jordan and like, or even like fucking some of these animals. Like you've got zebras that walk around with a hole in their stomach and they're still alive because like at this point it's survival, you know, for some of these fighters. They probably get into this mindset where shit, like this actually like depends on my legacy, my future, my finances. Like I need to show up even though I've got a fucked up shoulder. I've got like fucking all these things that are not ideal for this fight tonight, but I'm still going to show up and I'm not even going to tell anyone, you know?
The most interesting thing to me, Tom, sorry to interrupt you, is when fighters, like when you could see them in their head struggle with the idea of dying in the ring and they're like, I'm prepared to die. And they like almost accept that. Like, I don't know about you, but as you get later into life, a lot of people around you start dying, right? People get sick. And so you start to think about death more. And like, you know, like I think these people are like, a lot of fighters are really saying like, you know what, this is like, I'm of the mindset that I'm going in there. And if I die on my shield, that's my, you know, that's what was written. That's what was meant for me. And
that's
like when you have that type of
gladiators.
When you have that type of mentality, like that you're a step ahead of somebody who's like, oh, I don't want to injure my arm. I don't want to break my
exactly. I care about my health more.
Different mindset, right?
Yeah. It's a different mindset. It's fascinating, man. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating sport. It's a fascinating game. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, the UFC, for building this incredible thing.